Hey guys, Romeo Hertz here today to give you another chapter of One Piece 712 review. This one's called Violet, and obviously it's about Violet, the woman Sanji was with. And it starts off with Sanji, he's got his shit messed up essentially by Violet. Violet's betrayed him. Betrayed him because she's an assassin for the Don Quixote family. And she's pretty much treating Sanji like shit. She said, "Oh, you know, we were on you like white on rice from the moment you stepped into Dressrosa. We've known all about you. We've had you on lock." And she's constantly putting him down, saying that he's a pathetic man for believing in her so easily, believing everything she said when everything she said was a lie. And Sanji still, you know, this is my man Sanji. He still believes in Violet. She's betrayed him, but he doesn't believe that it's true. He believes that something about this is false. He doesn't know she's being forced, or there's some reason she has to do this, but he doesn't believe it's her pure intent. And she's saying, like, you know, that's just a cliche, a lie you're telling yourself from the truth. And she reveals that she has this ability. She's with her cronies, and she reveals she has this ability called the Giro no Mi, or the Goggle fruit, as it's translated. I'm not sure about the translation there, but it gives her the power of, she's an insight human, and she can basically do this thing with her eyes, and it allows her to see into people, not just physically, but also psychologically, mentally. And she does this actually there's this really cool thing. When she x-rays him, she goes one level past his clothes, then the next level past, so we're looking at him naked from the top up, and then we see him in his skeleton, and it's a nice touch, but his hair is still there, and his eyebrow is still there, and I'm like, there's something amusing about it. I wouldn't say funny, but there's something amusing that Kishimoto still retained that in his skeleton state. And she looks inside his head and she screams because she cannot fathom just how dirty a mind Sanji has. Very lewd thoughts, very obscene thoughts. He is the pinnacle of a pervert, and she just can't wrap her mind around the fact that he's having such disgusting thoughts even in the situation he's in. But Sanji says, you know, you might say what you're saying is, what you've said to me is a lie, but I looked into your eyes back then, and when you were crying, when I saw tears in your eyes, you said that there's a certain man I need you to kill. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that you were not lying. And this Sanji, the man, he's just like, and he says that no matter what happens, I will never doubt the tears of a lady. Raise the roof, Sanji, raise the roof. It's just excellent, Love how, I don't like how Sanji in the new world hasn't really been standing up at a combative level, but I do love his chivalry. I really love that aspect, and I really love how Kishimoto, no matter how many times I see it, it's always something I appreciate. And she appreciates it. She does this ability called Iron Tear Eye Whale, where I think she cries, and she uses her goggle abilities so that things that go through it expand, or its value changes in some way. And these massive whales not massive. Compared to real rails, I'd say they're as big as a car. Come out and they decimate the Don Quixote forces, cronies, their men. And Violet frees Sanji because of his belief in her. It's so powerful that even though she portrays herself as a Jezebel, despite everything she's done to shit on him, he still believes in her, and that, my man Sanji. So she says, and this is where we're getting to the point now where we were at the last chapter, which I didn't do, where she says, look, we know everything about the Straw Hats. We know exactly where you guys are. We know exactly what you've been doing, and you need to know how deep in the trap you really are. And she does this thing where she does the Giro ability with Sanji, puts it over his eyes, and she makes him look into her head to this morning. And we see Donflamingo, and everyone's like, you know, Don Quixote, Donflamingo, why are you giving up your royal status? What's going on? You can't do this. Donflamingo's getting pissed now because he's impatient. He wants CP0 to show up. As we know, these are the head honchos in the CP9, and as I said before, at the end of the Whitebeard World War arc, there was Don Quixote sitting with this guy with this kind of hat, and it looks like the same hat the center CP0 agent was wearing. So I think this is the guy he was talking to. And Donflamingo pretty much gets them to change the story. From what we can tell, this means that Donflamingo really did resign, but he's getting them to change. He resigned in the newspaper. He put the message out that he resigned, but he's getting CP0 to come in and change that as if it's a falsehood. It's not actually true. So he's making something he said was true into a lie. Using the power of the world government CP0. And they come in and they said to the citizens, it was a mistake, a printing error, it's wrong, it's falsified, it's erroneous, and you should pretend that this never happened. Don't mention anything to anyone, just pretend it never happened. Don't mention this at all. And they're like, okay, fine. The people are completely fine. He says there will be a newspaper coming out at 3 PM, which is, I'm pretty sure, the same time that the meeting goes down, that the exchange goes down. So, you know, Don Quixote playing it safe, not exactly safe. He could have waited until after the exchange, but considering that the Marines are there during the exchange, I guess it works out. And Sanji pretty much recognises that they're kind of up shit creek, but I think they still have a paddle. And we go over to Greenbit, and we start off where we left off in the last chapter, and even the Marines were jumped. Even they, like Sakazuki, didn't know. You know, Akaine didn't know. No one in the Marines knew, and this further cements what Aokiji said back to Smoker, that out of all the people, Don Quixote is the one who has who is the most dangerous for Akainu's idea of justice. And here we see it. He used his power to completely outmaneuver. He politically outmaneuvered the Marines. He outmaneuvered the Straw Hats, and he did it. He fooled the entire world using the government just for 10 people. And Lord picks up on this. Rubbing contacts Law using her Hanahana no Mi ability, and she's pretty much informs him what's going on. They're underground. They can't reach Law right now, but we'll go our separate ways and we'll meet at the port. And Law remarks that you know it's okay, do what you need to do, and it's actually surprising that he's concerned about them. I really appreciate that he's showing concern about the other Straw Hats instead of just his own concerns. And he says the deal's off, just as Don Quixote comes out of nowhere, comes from the sky and lands, and the Marines at the same time come out of the forest. And I just like to point out, in the panel where Fujitora kind of is about to step out, there's this kind of vine that seems like it's cut. Did Don Quixote do that to kind of snuff them out? I think he did. But shit's gonna get crazy anyway. And Don Quixote is playing coy. You know, the Marines, it's obvious by that twitch, that tree branch being cut. It seems like he understood the Marines were there, and he understood that he was using them. He was really using them. So it's like, okay, it's time for them to come out now. And because Fujitora is like, well, guess the jig's up, I have to come out. He then uses that as an advantage. He says, oh, Law, I'm shitting myself right now. I mean, they've just sent a Marine Admiral. You're a Shibukai, and I'm just a pirate. What am I gonna do? And Law just says, you know, stop the bullshit. I understand what's going on. And we jump over to Luffy, and C Block is underway. Cavendish wants to get to Luffy, but he's like, you can't, not in the middle of the fight. And wow, I mean, Odachi is going to go hard ass motherfucker on this. He's really going ham. So I can't. Well, this is going to be an interesting year, a very interesting year. But then we jump back to Don Quixote, Donflamingo. And he gives this speech, which is pretty much a kind of, you know, don't hate the player, hate the game kind of speech. He says, you know, you wouldn't think that I would go this far just to trick 10 people. And that's where you went wrong. That's where other people go wrong. In magic, it doesn't matter how grandiose it is. It's still a basic principle of trickery. And that's kind of what a pirate does. And here, it's the same thing. You thought I wouldn't do it, or you didn't really see how I could do it, because you didn't, and as such you didn't compensate for it. And now look at the position you're in, which we don't really understand. I mean, I'm pretty sure Law is a Shibukai. There's nothing to say that he's not, unless CP0 does something. But what's gonna happen? I don't really. But here's the most interesting part of this chapter. Law makes note that as powerful as the Shibukai are, their power really only goes so far as to giving them certain oversights, equipment, and less restrictions than a common pirate would have. But that doesn't give them any real authority over Marines. They can't order Marines around. They can't really manipulate the Marines. They have certain immunity. That's as far as they go with Marines. But Don Quixote goes way further than controlling the Marines. He goes all the way to the world government. something the Marines themselves answer to and can't really, you know, how much say they have is limited. I mean, Spandam, he was just the leader of CP9. He wasn't strong. He wasn't anything, and he had the ability to summon a Busticle on any island he wanted, which goes to show you how much power the government has. And law pretty much notes that, well, it's insane for you to have this level of power over the world, let alone the Marines, the world government. The only people who can influence the world government are the Tenryubito, which is kind of true. We saw what happened with Luffy at Sabondi Archipelago, and he just hit a world noble, and they sent an admiral down just for hitting a world noble, because they're so intricately connected to the world government. They kind of were the precursors to it. And then Law kind of like, well, if only a Tenryubito can do it. And then he thinks back to what Virgo says: you don't know anything about Don Quixote's past, and that's going to bite you in the ass. And here it does. So it seems that, but here's the thing, Don Quixote says it's a bit more complicated than that, and it is. Even if he is a Tenryubito, he is a pirate. That's kind of a problem. But it kind of isn't, because the Tenryubito can seemingly get away with anything. They were selling slaves, which was, from what we can tell, was illegal, and people just ignored it. They just turned a blind eye. But it also makes sense why the human shop, the human auction shop, the slave trade shop, was in Don Quixote's name, why he controlled it. And it also makes sense why he is the greatest broker in the New World, because of this. Not just because he's a Shibukai and he's got those immunities, he's also got world government immunities and political power as a Tenryubito. But even as a Tenryubito, his influence, I think, is a bit drastic. Too drastic, I'd say. So yeah, there's a lot. I don't think there's a lot of theories. I don't think there can be. We don't know enough about the Tenryubito to understand where Don Quixote fits into all of this. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting actually to understand how he is royalty. I mean, he's royalty of Dressrosa. Why Dressrosa in particular? You know, we'll have to see what Frankie says and what everyone says when they get to the little garden. But yeah, I mean, this was an awesome chapter of One Piece. It always surprises me how much content Kishimoto can put out in a single chapter. It's not excusable for the anime to stick to this method of a chapter per episode, but I always appreciate that whenever there's a chapter that we don't get a week and we get another one next week, there's just so much content, complete opposite to Bleach, and so much quality. So Romeo Hurts here today. Really, you know, this chapter was like a dessert out of 10. It was that great. Just really, really nice. Cannot wait for next chapter. We've been building up. It's Odachi's method. Great build up, great payoff, and here we're going to get the great payoff. So I can't wait. Until next chapter, guys. Until next week. See you later.